Alright, welcome back. Hope everyone was able to find something and get in there. Might be a little short, coming back late. But we're gonna go ahead and continue. We are still in staff reports, and political action is next. So Mr. Lozano, report.
Who's eating?
Hey, y'all, everyone had a good lunch. Let's get right into the political action report. So the main thing that we were focusing on last quarter of 2021 was recruiting all our candidates and positions. Now, I think that we have a decent amount. I want to give a big shout out to Ted Brown. He's been kind of spearheading the candidate recruitment. We do have pretty much everybody that needed to get in by the deadline got in. So I think we had maybe one person that missed it. There are still some opportunities for special elections. I know just 2 days ago I didn't include it in the report, but Texas House District 38 is having a special election. It's going to be the final deadline for that is on March 7th. I've already got one candidate that's thinking about jumping in, and hopefully if there's any other special elections that will kind of fill that out too. Did you mention anything about the candidate recruitment?
Just really briefly.
Just basically the recruitment went pretty well. We could have done better probably if we would have a better sense of what was going on with filing fees because of were there going to be fees, were there not going to be fees, could we file without the fees? And eventually we learned that the Secretary of State, again, like last time, would allow us to enter the candidates into the system saying they didn't pay the fee if they didn't, rather than forcing us to require the fee in order to accept the nomination. However, we still are faced with various laws that the lawsuit is dealing with. So I wish we could have had more statewide candidates, but luckily we have several of those. And the Liberty Booster PAC did quite a bit in getting the filing fees together for the statewide candidates. And plenty of the state house candidates and a couple of congressional candidates did pay the filing fee. So they're all set no matter what happens with the lawsuit. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll have this settled completely by the next election so we can do better in that regard. But I'm very happy with with our candidates who are running. We've got a really great slate of people, and we'll see what happens. Okay, right.
And then going on to that, the next thing that political action is trying to make sure that we get done is to send out periodical reminders and make sure everyone meets their ethical filing deadlines. That's mostly for the state and district candidates for the tech deadlines. I have that on the next page right there. The big one coming up on the 14th on Monday is the personal financial statement. Now for federal candidates, so if you're running in a congressional district, those file with the Federal Election Commission, and if you're raising or expending less than $5,000, you don't have to worry about that. And then of course for local candidates, any one county or on a more local basis, then that's with your respective county elections department. So if you do have any questions, do feel free to reach out to us. We're trying to coordinate that, make sure no one misses anything. We're all keeping everything good. No reason for the duopoly to kick us off, because there are a few uncontested, well, not uncontested, but one-sided races where there's either a Republican or just a Democrat in us. So those are kind of the ones to mostly focus on, but of course every race is important. Then moving on from that, the other big thing I wanted to mention during this report was, if we go down a little bit further, all the way, not all the way to the end, but to the penultimate last page. Coalitions was a big issue that kind of got brought up with Texas Gold. That was about back in December. There was an issue there with things were not properly delineated on what our policy is for bringing in different coalition members. And this isn't a motion, so don't worry about it. I know that's not kosher right now to put great emotions, but this is just to give SLEC an opportunity for some oversight. So this is your coalitions, if we bring anybody else in. These are kind of the questions that we're going to try to put into every single coalition partnership agreement. If there is anything that's looks bad or SLEC wants to add, please, reach out to me, let me know, because this is kind of what we're going to be looking at when we go with the future partner. These are the questions that are going to be answered, and those are the kind of answers that we're going to give to them. Just on a case-by-case basis, there might be a few things that are different here and there. However, this is the predominant way that that's going to go ahead and go on with. Other than that, there is that the constitutional amendments, I think it's going to be at a later point in the agenda. So I'm going to leave that off till then. But I do think Renee wanted to speak a little bit about legislative announcements and a few things going on with that.
Thank you, Brian. Hey guys, at the conference call with county affiliates last Saturday afternoon, I wanted to let the counties know that their county conventions are an amazing opportunity to use the power of a resolution voted on during the conventions to speak upon issues specific to their county and, of course, on state issues. One of our most critical jobs is to inform the public who we are and what we stand for. And these resolutions can be a great tool to let people know how we feel about certain issues. So maybe there's some bridge that has not been repaired quite some time. Maybe the county needs to have a toll bridge or something to that effect, but make something specific to let the independent voters of the county know that the Libertarian Party is more than just about guns, ganja, gays, and gold. We've got to wait.
And what order we throw this in?
The independent voters are not going to consider us if they think that's all that we're standing for. We've got to reach out to them, get those little bridges to their world. There's some recently let you guys know about. This is consistent with something that actually helped bring me to the party. Senator John Tester has offered an agricultural right to repair act. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this issue that has been getting worse and worse past couple of decades. I see people nodding heads. So a lot of the items that we buy, we're not able to work on. In decades past, we could. And because of good lobbying by large corporations, they made it such that it's almost criminal. If at bare minimum violating your warranty on whatever device that you bought. And John Tester, he's been, you'll probably see a few more interviews that he's doing. He's kind of making a round on this bill, and it's gaining a lot of popularity. I believe this is a libertarian principle, that an individual should be able to work on the items that he buys because he owns them. If he can't work on them, does he actually own them? For him to work on his own property, he has to take it to an authorized dealer, and then, for example, wait on their time. Because that was one of the issues that John brought up, Senator Tester brought up, that in harvest season, you can't wait 2 or 3 days till the dealer gets around to working on your equipment. You need it fixed right now. So there's that, and I just found out there's another similar one that's been offered in the House for digital items. So some of y'all may be familiar with my futile attempts to fix my phone. I fixed it before successfully, by the way, but the second time I had a problem. But the punchline is, again, some manufacturers have taken advantage of their position and have made it difficult, if not downright impossible, for you to work on your own property. So this is, I believe this is a great way for the Libertarian Party to let the independent voters know that we are there for issues, and we want to represent you on issues that matter to you most. So, and so by saying that also, guys, if you see similar issues like this, please bring them up to us so we can help get the word out. And please think about those resolutions, okay?
I think we have a good political slogan that Renee just gave us, guns, Contra, gays, and all, and we're gonna be making sure.
We need another G so we can be a full 5 Gs.
That'll be the next report, we'll be working on that, 5G. Also, the final shout out was, Alan Tenenbaum, I believe here, he's been brought on as our new election analyst, so we're hoping to get, dig into some of the data that we have, and get, I think, Alan and I have discussed a little bit about some heat maps that maybe we're thinking about working on to try to determine what elections, of course, are best so that we can focus on, that we can really, on the margins, make a difference and maybe even capture some of that, kind of at an independent vote or people that don't vote at all that maybe want to do, I don't want to say protest vote, because, I hope because not only do we get a little bit of extension of the filing deadline, because that one's not until March 7th, but also in those, it's kind of a sort of a jungle primary where multiple Republicans, multiple Democrats might fight, they might dilute their shares. So that could help us if we have a Libertarian candidate on that. Other than that, I'll open up for questions, and if anyone has anything.
District 11. And whenever they're asked what position have you ever held? Before, these state conventions, like in the midterms and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think I see what you're saying a little bit. It sounds like maybe it's more help on the local level with different Democrats, because there's a lot of off-year elections, like for instance, this is an election year, but maybe a lot of the local races, they'll do 2021, 2023. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Stuff like that.
Okay.
We tend to always focus on,
National
2
races.
4,
Yeah.
And you can ask anybody here, and maybe a handful, maybe know when their city elections are, their school board elections are, who they are.
Yeah.
And just like, for example, Shannon Thompson, he was mayor of Big Spring.
Yeah.
That's huge. Libertarian.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with those they are nonpartisan positions, not that I'm saying he's not a libertarian, but he doesn't have a big L next at the end of his name.
I understand it's nonpartisan, but we can boast that, hey, we have so-and-so on city council, we have so-and-so on the school board, we have so-and-so who's a commissioner, But we can't say that. Whenever, you're in a conversation with somebody, you say, so, how many libertarians are in Texas? A lot of people here don't know that.
Yeah.
But that's something that we, as a body, need to focus on, not just the large. I get it. I would love to see the legislature be, 3 colors on a map. I would love it, having some say. And I really understand that we had to have these statewide races in order to retain ballot access. That's a necessity, you know. But we have to have a nice foundation where we can get in the grassroots and start, I don't even want to use the word manipulate, but we can start shaping the local politics to start thinking more libertarian. Because everybody just sees Republican. And I just want to know, what can the political, because I understand that Renee's going and doing the lobby. I still, honestly, personally, have not seen any effect of that, really, that affect us locally in the county or city level.
If I may,
Yes.
that's the job of the county chairs and the SLEC reps, to go out into your districts that you represent, the counties that you represent, and you start having those conversations there and getting the counties organized in the way that they can start supporting local candidates. That needs to happen there.
And if I run out of time, but,
Yes, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Yeah, if I could just really quick, what we can do though, in response to your question is, that is a good idea to get a better, maybe develop a calendar, especially in the off years, to try to just run a reminder, send out like a blast reminder saying like, hey, county chairs, this is a, local race that's coming up. There may be some opportunities here. Please do your due diligence, like that kind of thing. So that would be something.
Yeah, not just one email.
Yeah, I mean multiple, but I mean at least let's start.
And to respond to that, is like, how many counties are involved in their local city and county races?
Open discussion time, guys.
No, I'm just saying,
Right.
out of all the affiliated counties.
Well, I think I'm out of time. If there's any other questions, I can't answer them unless someone moves to.
Thank you. Minute select members show up, either just before lunch or during lunch, so I want to make sure that we get them counted present if they're here. Aaron Ramos, I think you were one. Madam Secretary, did you add Adam Ramos? Anyone else show up since roll call?
Michael Hanson.
No, you were here.
You said you were here anyway.
Okay, well, sometimes I'm here.
That's the one that I saw.
He's been added.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is events, which, as we have mentioned already, Becca mentioned in her vice chair's report, that there would be a report for events specifically within the next couple days. There will be information on this forum. And as you know, the one thing from the events department that is new is that Mr. Martinez has resigned. That's it. So moving on from there, we go straight into new business notice. And the first item there is a motion related to inappropriate use of contact info and a censure. Mr. Wilford was supposed to be presenting this particular motion. He is not here with us today. Is there someone else who has been tagged or is willing to present this motion? Or do we have the language?
I have a very long drawn out thing that says he'll figure out the motion. So no, unless I saw, was there one?
I thought there was a motion.
There were a lot of discussions.
The meeting info?
It has its own topic.
Just for the record, right now, you're showing your display, and it's not just SLEC in this room. Thank you. Not you. Fuck my stuff. I was like, you're like, how is this?
The latest is in the forum,
Yeah, it's
in his original thread, February agenda request, and it was 10 days ago, was the John Wilford last posted. We need this final version, or you can take someone else on this body to move that motion, and for us to take it up. Yes.
We can make a motion to continue maybe later on.
There's no need to do that. If there's no one here to present this motion, we will just move right over. Mr. Ramos.
I'll present the motion.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
You were looking for the language, is that what?
Yeah.
Oh,
If you could step forward, maybe whenever you present.
when you're ready.
To the mic, please. Yeah, when you're ready.
I have a copy of what we have. Hold on. He changed.
It's under,
I thought I got the last.
the original thread was the February agenda request.
Yep.
It's no longer. And then the last revision was presented 10 days ago. This says 10 days ago.
What's the language on the agenda? Yeah, there wasn't motion language, but what was related to that?
But I'll double check. Okay, give it a second and I'll come back on.
Okay. All right. All right, there's a microphone right back there, Mr. Ramos. And Madam Secretary, do you have the text?
Yes, sir.
I would just want to make sure as we go that it matches what Mr. Ramos is asking.
This is what Wilbur had on the last update.
Okay.
Although he had typos.
Here's his, would you like me to read the entire?
Yes, for the benefit of those in the room who have not been in the forum to read through this and who want it read aloud, and for those of us who are too old to be able to read the screen. So we'll be quiet in the room for this. A motion is being made, a motion is being presented on the floor. Proceed.
Whereas the Capital Glass campaign collected emails from LP Texas members with the implication of using that information to promote the libertarian campaign. Whereas LP Texas data has been shared with the Capital Glass campaign. Whereas an email was sent to the emails collected for a libertarian campaign in order to promote a Republican Party candidate. Whereas multiple members of this party have claimed to have never shared the information with the Capital Glass campaign and received the aforementioned email. Whereas the Libertarian Party of Texas promotes the promotion of duopoly candidates to directly harm the interests of a world set free in our lifetime. And whereas even under the best interpretation of these events, Congress and Patrick Glass have created the appearance of impropriety within the Libertarian Party of Texas ethics, the Texas Executive Committee. Therefore, the Libertarian Party of Texas hereby censures both Tom Glass and Captain Glass. Furthermore, the Libertarian Party of Texas directs the rules committee to look at proposals to mitigate and prevent this type of damage moving forward.
Second,
Who seconded?
Kyle, SD 16.
Repeat that one more time.
Kyle, let's
Kyle,
All right, so we have a motion as read.
available somewhere. But I just copied and pasted
Essentially,
that
you
shit.
sent your Tom Kathy Glass for reasons, for the aforementioned reasons, and also directs the rules committee to look at proposals to mitigate and prevent this type of damage moving forward. It has been seconded. Is there any objection to this, to adopting this motion?
I have a question.
I have a question.
Okay, so I'm going to take that. In order for us to enter into discussion about it.
Objection.
Objection.
So hearing objection, I saw 3 hands. You're one of them?
Scott Kelly, SD5. My question is, what effect would the censorship have on Kathy?
Okay, we kind of went a little bit out of order here, so let me do something. You're the one that presented the motion. There was an objection to it. Can you, do you want this moment to speak to your motion?
I'll speak to it.
And then we'll get right back to
I believe it was in November when we started receive, where some members of the Harris County area started receiving emails for Tom Glass County. these representatives never gave their emails to the classes, but they have definitely filled out signing forms for LP taxes or Harris County Libertarian Party. So they know for sure it has been collected through one of those means because they didn't do so. The hope to censure the classes is so that they have a permanent reminder that we are aware of their misuse of our resources. And that in the event that they choose to run for another select term, or they choose to run for county office, this is held over their head, and the community at large is aware of those issues.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Your particular knowledge of the effect of the censure? Okay. Ted?
Yeah, Ted Brown, District 14. My question is about Tom Glass, because he's not a member of this committee anymore. The executive committee, so it would seem to me that it should be Kathy being listed. This is still a member of this committee. Just a point, so I just wanted to address that. Why would he be included as well?
I believe we have the ability to censure anyone. If we wanted to censure Joe Biden, we could censure Joe Biden.
All right, let's do
But-
that.
We want the reminder to affect him and her as well, because they're separate individuals, and we don't know who actually took the emails, who was receiving those, but we know it's one of them.
Mr. Haskett? Okay. You can have the gavel. I'm gonna put myself on the list and then jump off. Just to follow up, I think you almost touched on it, but not well enough for my liking. The effect of this, what I would hope it to be, is also to let all of those members know whose rights are violated, that these people use their information without authorization to do so. It's us conveying to them that that's not acceptable and that we're not going to tolerate.
Yes, ma'am.
consent.
Yes, exactly. So,
Okay.
thank you. Mr.
Ham, SD11. I intend to speak in support of this motion. Not only did the emails go out to people who had not been placed on the list, but for a brief moment, it was pulled by their webmaster. Tom Glass's Republican campaign ad appeared on the Harris County Libertarian Party's website. All right? Cannot say in the censure, sorry, Facebook, sorry. Censure in the strongest possible terms is indubitably in order here. Therefore, I move to amend the language for Tom and Kathy Glass to simply Kathy Glass and the Glass campaign. Did that make sense?
Let me put it back up, and then you can tell me that.
Yeah, I told you.
Yes, so we have an amendment.
Yeah, just and the Glass campaign, because the Glass is the brand. So what we're doing is we're right?
If you can provide the exact language that you are proposing for this amendment to the secretary, so that everyone can see it, and we'll be able to read it smoothly.
I like that one. I like that.
Was there a
Yeah.
second?
Okay.
I'll second.
Sure. Yeah, that was good.
And I need, no cross
Okay,
talking
take
here,
out
so I can
Glass after
hear
Tom.
what the motion maker is
This
saying.
part, and then we're gonna edit it down more, okay?
Okay, sure. No problem.
Because I don't want to have something, it's a little work.
We're in debate of the objection. Are you objecting
So-
to the,
Both.
Edit.
We're in debate on
the black Kathy.
you're objecting to the change though? Yeah, that's,
Both.
I second that.
It's Kathy I.E.
Thank you.
So,
Yes, this is.
Yes, ma'am. That's my proposal.
I need order in the room, please.
I believe,
Mr. Ramos has the floor.
I believe there's separate class campaigns. There was Tom Glass for his rep, there was Kathy Glass for governor, and I don't know what other campaigns they have used in the past.
I was speaking in the current tense, but if you want to get down, that's fine with me. They want to
So you were speaking in terms of,
what they're doing presently, because the campaign that they're promoting right now is his campaign.
can I have
Exactly.
quiet in the room?
Thank you.
The Melfi over Tom's campaign.
Okay, so what you intended for yours to say Kathy Glass and
The Tom,
Tom.
and you can say yeah, and the Tom Glass campaign.
Okay,
That's
so
also
he's
fine.
talking about the one that is active right now, Kathy Glass's campaign for governor.
Yeah, so it's
Not-
So it's Tom Glass for tax.
Okay. Okay.
Get them all.
Mr. Westbrook, we still have an amendment on the floor, and so we are still working through this, and we'll need to be discussing it. Mr. Westbrook?
Do we need an Oxford comma there?
I don't know.
That is optional?
We don't right now because it's only 2 items. When it was 3 items, yes. I will hold on for that.
Optional.
Okay, so, the Kathy Glass part was already in there. We are adding,
You're just buzzing on past that, then, yeah.
there we
I'm
go.
done, yeah.
And the
The Tom
Tom
Glass.
Glass.
Okay.
And the Oxford.
Okay, I think this covers the
I hope
original
you were
one and it
satisfied.
adds the amendment that Mr. Holmes put forth. The amendment to add the Tom Glass campaign was seconded. Is there any objection to adding that amendment? Hearing no objection. It's amended as you see there. So now we are back to debate on the motion itself.
And the floor is yours, Madam Chair.
Mr. Westbrook.
District 31. So I think I missed the last gathering of SLEC. Prior to that, maybe that's prior to the last one in November, right?
On the forum.
Am I correct?
No, any discussions about this was done on the forum. It was done on the forum, and in the forum, it was decided that this would be put forth at this meeting.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Okay. Mr. Hale?
Move the question. All questions.
Mr. Hale is calling the question. Question has been called. Is there any objection to, was it second?
Second.
Was there any objection to calling the
Who
question?
asked that for a second?
Hearing no objection, we will proceed to a vote on this motion. All right, all in favor of this resolution? What's that? We already did, no. You don't have a vote.
All in favor?
Vote, often, it's early in office.
Early in
All in favor of adopting this resolution, this motion, as you see it here? Yeah, we can do show of hands.
Voice vote should work. Did you
Someone
ask?
else said aye.
I see 25,
There's only like 26 in here.
47.
Just curious.
All opposed? Okay, this motion passes. And it didn't take 30 minutes. Thanks, Mom, for filling in for Mr. Wilford. All right, where are we? Our place. Last time Arthur thought it was gonna take forever, and it went very smooth. We have policy proposals from Arthur Thomas, we've got 45 minutes slated for this, I assume the secretary has all of the information she needs.
Hello. I upload these, I think, January 24th on the forum, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them. So there are 13 proposals, and I can go through them. It's up to y'all how fast y'all want to go through these. So,
Hit the gas, brother.
I can, do y'all want me to go through them one by one? That's what I would normally do. Okay. The first one I'll move, cut off for appointing temporary counties. And I can, basically this is what the affiliate team has done now. Nick, do you want to speak, Nathan? It's up to you. I don't.
I can speak to it very, very briefly. So this is, what I understand this.
Microphone.
Thank you.
Please.
What I understand Arthur's policy proposal here is doing is that while we can always accept, people can always submit an application for a temporary county chair. Practically, there are periods in the election cycle, a 2-year election cycle, where it does not make sense to appoint new county chairs to form new county affiliates. And one of the first clear deadlines for that would be the fact that one of the reasons county chairs are put in place is so that they can receive applications for nomination from people who want to run as candidates. Election code specifies a deadline for candidates to turn that in. So if the county chair is appointed after or even too close to that deadline, there practically is, they're not going to be in place to be able to receive that application to fulfill that duty of the county chair. So my understanding is that Arthur's proposal says that we won't, in the 2-year election cycle, we're going to stop appointing new county chairs and forming new county affiliates 10 days prior to that deadline for candidates' applications for nominations, and then you can resume appointment after state election, which is practically what we have to do anyway.
I apologize to the chair. I'm supposed to present a motion and it's supposed to be seconded before we go into discussion on it. So I apologize about that. So I move this, cut off with appointing temporary county chairs motion.
Second.
Okay, all right. So Nathan discussed it. Thank you, Nathan.
So what you're presenting right now, what you're moving is
The first one.
just the first one.
Yes, just.
Okay, so the one that's listed as number 1, cut off or appointing temporary members. All right, and it has been seconded. Is there any objection?
Objection,
Okay.
31.
All right, so we have, please raise your hand if you intend to speak on this. Okay, it sounds like someone has already spoken to your motion. So, and I heard an objection from Mr. Westbrook, so would you like to speak to your objection?
I would simply state that in my opinion, what is written there does not clearly convey what was spoken to in terms of what the objective is. That may not be the case, but what I see there, that does not compute for me.
So, are you asking for clarification? Are you asking the maker of the motion to clarify part of it for you?
Well, if I knew how to fix it, I would make a motion to amend it, so that, how do I put this politically? I don't know how. So that it made more sense, I guess, or it's more clear. It looks to me like it needs clarification.
Did you mention a specific part? Maybe I missed it.
Well, so no new temporary county affiliates may be established after 10 days before the deadline. So you got this after and before, and I just think maybe if it was broken up into,
I could speak to an amendment. I could speak to an amendment if you'd like. Yeah. So I would move to amend it to write it in the positive. So instead of saying no new temporary county affiliate can be established, say temporary county affiliates can be established up to 10 days before.
So if he has an amendment to make, he's going to have to get in line.
And somebody's gonna have to move to
Or
amend.
Mr. Westbrook can make an amendment.
I was speaking directly to one of my colleagues and hopefully he heard me.
Given my assistance from the floor, I would like to make that motion as it was suggested.
Okay, Moxley, will you please repeat your suggestion?
And let's please defer to the order of speakers.
My apologies.
Okay.
So what is the motion to amend? What is it supposed to
The
say?
language.
Could I have some assistance from the floor?
Did anybody second the motion?
To write it in the positive, to say temporary, the temporary appointments shall, can I say the old one? That makes it easier. Temporary county affiliates can be established up to 10 days until, may be established up to 10 days before the deadline.
Okay. Let me go down there.
May only be established up to, thank you from the gallery.
All right, so I'm just trying to follow along here. Temporary county affiliates
May be,
may only be established up to 10 days before. So everything else from there
Don't
is
need
the
the
same.
other two.
Hold on.
Temporary county affiliates may be established up to 10 days
before
before the deadline.
the filing deadline, I believe it said.
Deadline's a filing application.
File
Check.
after the adjournment of the state convention. Is this what you meant?
When it says affiliate, is that talking about the chair that was mentioned in the discussion?
Correct.
Thank God, Mark.
That's what I was intending.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Kevin Hale, SB2 second.
Right. Is there any objection to this amendment in clarifying of the language?
I object. I think I was kind of the road to helping date with good intentions. What happens in the case of a special election that doesn't necessarily fit into that cycle? What then? We've weeded ourselves into a corner, and will we disallow ourselves from running somebody in that election who's a good candidate willing to run, just because we've negated the formation of a new county in that circumstance?
So, what I'm hearing you say is that you're concerned about a special election and this would prevent us from running someone in a special election?
Wouldn't.
Because it's boxing us into.
Action.
Nathan?
Nathan, you're 28.
Thank you, Nathan.
Okay, is there any other objection to this amendment? This was just clarifying the language so that we're fewer negatives in this statement. Hearing no objection, the amendment is adopted. Now we are back to the main motion, and I have Ted Brown.
Yes, I want to speak against the motion. There's certainly a lot more for the county chair to do than to receive applications. In fact, almost none of our county chairs received any applications for just like, maybe six counties or 8 counties out of the whole state, except nominations for candidates. But there are 4 months between the filing deadline for candidates and the state convention, which seems to me to be plenty of time if there's an enthusiastic new activist who wants to hold a county convention, elect delegates, and have delegates to the state convention. They should be allowed to do so. I don't think we should have this fixed amount. Now, if it turns out that none of the interviewers are able to get this done in that amount of time, that could happen, but we shouldn't be limiting ourselves. Maybe they could. For example, how we were able to maybe rush through Blanco County because they had such an enthusiastic candidate for county commissioner there back in December. So we should leave it open so that that can be done if necessary.
Janae?
The first part I was going to say is everything that Ted just said. And the second was I would not be here if I wasn't allowed to affiliate with my county. I applied the last week of December of 2019. My interviews were held the first 2 weeks of January, and I was appointed January 27th, I believe. That allowed me to hold a convention, start the party. I was selected as a national delegate and a state delegate. I wouldn't have been able to do any of that. And convention, it was a little overwhelming, but I had all the support I needed. I had Andrew, my SC rep, and Kathy Glass was very helpful. Anyone I reached out to was there, and we have a better team now than we did then. We have more affiliate support. I don't think we should limit this.
Scott Talley, SD5. I have a question for Arthur, and that is, what did you hope to accomplish by this policy that he said was effectively already being done? Is there a good reason that we need to have this in the policy manual?
My preference would be for the party to have policies instead of staff just enacting policies. So that's the reason I wrote it. And effectively, it's correct. The people in those positions are just going to have time to do stuff or not practically. But I think it's good to have policies to make it clear instead of someone saying, like Nathan, have to worry about, well, I'm making this decision and being under stress of him being the only one and getting blamed for the decision instead of just having a clear policy for the party.
Mr. Gavel, I would like to speak on it. Not necessarily on this, I'm not speaking for or against it. I just want.
You had a request for information?
I have a quick question, maybe for you, from a point of process. If we enact this and we come across a situation where they're not in the deadline and we still want to do it, SLEC can always sort of do a temporary motion to temporarily violate this policy on an exigent circumstance basis or make an exception to the rule is what I'm getting at. That is a possibility for us, right? Down the road. We're not tying our hands indefinitely.
A couple of things to Arthur's point about codifying this in a way that it's in policy and not leaving it in the hands of staff to decide arbitrarily depending on the situation that they're facing that year. That is something definitely to be considered. That is an important point. We don't want staff members, because it may not be Nathan next time, it may be someone who does not have this experience next time, and they're way out of their depth, or the bottleneck is too long. Having it in the policy this way sets up a system where they can start that we get these things done in a proper manner. When we, to Mr. Burns' point, being able to sort of waive our own policy from time to time when there's something that we all perceive as an emergency, a special case scenario where we think it is necessary. That is also an option. And it protects staff from having to be the ones that arbitrarily decide what constitutes an emergency and what doesn't, and having to make that decision on their own. So I want to put that out there. I will say the deadline or the particular time frame here is not something that I'm going to speak for or against. I can see arguments for it being this early. I can see affiliating a county through the system that we have in place, which is very robust and very thorough. We're all going to be in a situation where we're preparing for conventions already at that point. Today, for example, we're putting on a training, aren't we? 4 counties to start preparing their conventions. So would we say that even after today, we would still be affiliating counties and then asking them to hold conventions in a month and a half? It seems to me that there needs to be a cutoff at some point. Where that point is remains to be seen. But codifying this in a way that gives the staff some lines and some guardrails for all of us, but then also, as Mr. Burns pointed out, allows us to, when we all decide that it is necessary and important that a county be affiliated very quickly, I would assume that it would be specifically for the purpose of holding a convention, which would be specifically for the purpose of nominating a candidate that needed to be nominated. Otherwise, I don't see what the purpose would be in such a rush. So I'm just putting that out there. It is not an argument for or against any of this. I would say maybe I am favoring it in general, but not necessarily the specific subject. So I will leave that to you all. I just wanted to give you some insight, because what we do have in place is a very robust and thorough process that takes time, not just from Nathan Watts and his team, but from also people here and also people here. So, Joe, were you good? I can take you off the list of speakers. All right, and then Mr. Emily.
2 things. I think Whitney just showed us the way, and I'd like to propose an amendment changing the cutoff time if that's in order. I would also like to mention that from the other side of my colleague, when I volunteered for Washington County Chair in 2014, I was told at that time by the people who were doing things that we have a convention coming up. It's a couple months out yet. We're not going to be able to process this in time, but we will call you as soon as we get finished with the convention. And it just never occurred to me to question it. I mean, that made sense to me. And I waited until later in the summer. I got the phone call and we went from there. So I'm sympathetic to the ask. I don't see a problem with that. I'm wondering if we can't just talk about when the cutoff should be.
What's 30 days before the precinct convention or something?
Well, I think
Because that would have,
if,
you would have been, okay.
do you have, I mean, you can make an amendment to that point at this time.
I'll scroll up.
I'd say
Well, hold on a
30 days
second.
before the precinct convention.
The responsive,
The amendment that we already did is already over, right?
Correct.
Nobody objected to it, so
Nope.
it is part of the main motion now. Okay, so yeah, we're back at the main motion now. So what I'm hearing you say,
first responsibilities the new county chair would have with respect to the convention would be the filing of
maybe
notices.
speak up.
The first responsibility that the county chair would need to be prepared for would be filing appropriate notices for the precinct and county conventions, right? Which happens in late February.
Well, perhaps, I mean, the original motion here is,
Filing.
it actually stops at a particular time here, because the first thing that they would actually be doing if they were affiliated is accepting, at this point, filing fees and registration, filing forms and fees for people who were filing for office. So that actually happens obviously in December, right?
Yeah.
The next thing they would
Okay.
be doing related to conventions is. So what we're looking at is this gray area space between the time that someone would have otherwise filed to run, and they wouldn't have been able to, because theoretically, if the filing deadline has already come and gone in their county, and their county's not affiliated, then there's not gonna be there's not gonna be a candidate there anyway.
Oh, hold on a second.
Because they wouldn't have been able to file.
Okay, I'm just gonna say what I said. I'll leave it to somebody else maybe to come up with, because I would just pick something out of the air and just let us kick it back and forth until we zero in and converge on something. Maybe somebody else has a clearer idea of what a more amenable.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Does that, I mean, do you also have to conduct your first official meeting, establish your bylaws and your chair before you're considered fully affiliated too? Because that's another step, right?
That's their convention.
That's convention, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so after, okay, so I didn't know it was temporarily, you always usually be
Ted?
Well, right, my suggestion is 30 days before the precinct convention.
I second.
So that would give people time for posting the notice, and would also allow time for, they wouldn't be able to have a candidate, they would be able to have a county convention and nominate delegates to the state convention as well, or like delegates to the state convention. So that would be a good compromise. So there would only be like a 2-month period between the precinct convention or 30 days before the precinct convention and the state convention when you could do the affiliation. Otherwise, it's fair game.
Is that a motion, sir?
That's a motion, yeah.
Can you give me specific
Yeah,
language?
we have a motion to amend to change the timing of this. So on the motion itself, it would read how?
Let's get back to that wording. Instead of 10 days before the deadline to file, it would be
Hang on,
30 days
let me get
before
some
the precinct convention.
We'll just keep going.
We need to find the motion of the
There.
text of the motion.
Yeah, 30 days before the precinct convention.
Okay, so temporary county affiliates may be established up to,
And she's trying to get a clear spot to do the launch.
up to
30 days
30 days
until after your precinct convention. Yes, ma'am.
So everything else stays the same.
Everything else is the same.
Before precinct convention, right?
Before, yeah.
And then you would need to remove,
That's right.
And that's it?
And then remove
no, you have to remove deadline,
Yeah.
Until, then it gets
All the way
down
to-
until.
all the way, take out everything prior to until.
There.
Yes. That does clean the
Temporary
way.
county affiliates may be established up to 30 days before precinct conventions until after the adjournment of the state convention.
So, yeah.
And I heard a second, I believe.
It was seconded.
Who?
Scott Talley,
Okay,
SD5, second.
That's slightly
All right.
off on the wording there.
Hold on.
Mr. Brown says that's not his wording, so
Well,
let's.
yeah, that part was, but we didn't actually change that until part, didn't fit with the previous amendment, I think. Okay, temporary affiliates may be established up to 30 days before the precinct convention, and
Like this, and after the adjournment of the state convention. Yes.
That actually does clean up the language rather
That
than.
is it?
yes.
All right, we seconded, are there any objections to this?
Objection.
Are there any objections? To those of you supporting this amendment, I feel that you have already spoken to it. Okay, and then whoever objected can speak.
I'd like to speak to it because
Who was speaking?
I think it's
Scott
very,
Talley?
Scott Talley, SD5. I think it's very important that we give the counties an opportunity to get organized and participate in the state convention and give them as much time as possible. Once we get I think 30 days is fair enough time to get a precinct convention organized within the smaller counties at the very least. And I think it's important for them to be able to elect their officers and get all that stuff done and be organized. That's not all I'm saying.
All right,
It's not, I think it's more than just the candidates.
Ms. Conrad and then Mr. Westbrook.
Our counties have
support team is limited in what they can do and in how many of them have availability. And this is the time where they need to be the most focused on helping our established counties prepare for the things that they need to get done so that the turnover that we experienced in, I believe, 2018, 2020 never happens again, where 50% of our counties go from affiliated to unaffiliated. They need to be focused during those critical months before the convention on keeping and retaining our strong counties already. I'm not opposed at all to every moment that we have up until the deadline that we set, but the pressure that is then put on the affiliate support team to reroute their efforts to new counties that need so much more support takes them away from keeping our other counties going at that time. So that's my objection.
Leave out that.
Yeah. It's, yeah.
Mr. Westbrook?
Madam Chair, I oppose this amendment, and the reason being is that potentially we could have someone who wants to run for whatever office. Let's say, for example, the deadline is the 13th of December, and we do not have these conventions that are being discussed in it, or these events that are being discussed in the amendment until months after that, several months after that. And so the individual who decides, for example, at the end of October, that, hey, the guy who's running the show now, in the office that I want, he needs to be out of here, and I want to run as libertarian. Well, that person then can't do that if their county is not affiliated. And that becomes problematic for them. And the original motion was determined by the staff, say, hey, we need at least 10 days to make this happen. Now, that may be realistic or not. I personally don't think it is. I think we probably do need 30 days, but that wasn't what they presented. And so I'm assuming that if someone were to come, let's say in November, and say, hey, we've got counties we want to affiliate with the Libertarian Party. And we want to, by the way, we've got this guy who wants to run for office, and the deadline's the beginning of December, that we should be able to accommodate that and not have to wait a whole year, maybe 2 years for that to happen.
So to clarify, what I'm hearing you say is that the way the original motion was worded, it allowed for people to file because counties would be able to be established up to 10 days prior to that. This one eliminates the possibility for anyone to file because their county would not be affiliated at that point and may not be affiliated until.
And they might have to wait 2 years, up to 2 years, maybe 3.
Okay, I also want to point out, just for everyone, for your perspective here, today is approximately 30 days for precinct convention. Well, what this motion right now, the way it reads right now, the amendment that's here now, is that at this point right now, or let's say Thursday or Friday of this past week, would have been the cutoff for affiliating with New County. At that point, anybody who would have filed in December would have already had a chance to do that, or their county affiliated. If their county was unaffiliated, they would not have had a chance to do that, nor would they at this point, according to this. So I just want to put that out there. Today is approximately 30 days from the deadline that's being proposed here. And think about what our people have been doing during these last few weeks. We've got a training happening today, in fact, to prepare for these conventions. So I just want to make sure everybody has that perspective. Mr. Thomas?
I know that people might want to fiddle with the date, that's normal. The anchor point of the filing deadline is mostly because I'm not saying it's the only purpose, but one of the primary purposes of our party is to win partisan candidates on the ballot. And that's why it's important to have counted. So I think that's why that particular date is an anchor point, whether we extend it, however we extend it, that should be the anchor point. It's the most meaningful. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was, Nathan released a report in the past, and that report made it very clear the turnover of counties that we're facing. That we've had a problem where people want to be delegates or they want to do some other stuff, and that all these applications start getting thrown into the process so that they can fill people in seats. And that takes up people's time to deal with. And then after conventions, they go on the whole cycle, get to the end of the cycle, and don't hold conventions. Because they only cared about taking the delegate seats. They didn't care about establishing a county. The purpose of the idea behind it is to find people who are serious about continuing and establishing an ongoing county, not just a delegate county to throw some people at a convention. Or not even, you could argue it's not like, you think about what's the point of having a county just to run one candidate? We might want to do that, because the candidate might be really good, but lose a county after a whole year, what's the point? The goal should be to have continuing counties and not get 20 counties lumped on at the end of the process right before conventions with people that came on right at the end just to lose them again and start the process over. So I understand the dates, people might want to tweak them, but there's more to consider here than just getting people in seats.
Yeah, my thing is on the candidate side. I'm sorry. From Old Artist 219, just sticking to the date there, that's backing up the precinct convention. I'm speaking against that just because that's a short date. Really, the date you should look at there is the notice for the precinct convention. You're having an even shorter window on that for the person.
Well, that's it. That would extend it. That's implied.
Know what they're doing in the notice. That's further back off from that would have been more appropriate.
So in other words, the way it's written now, it does not count for the time.
Yes.
Posting.
The posting would be 2 weeks
All right, Mr. Hale.
Yeah.
You're acronym.
Hale, SD2. My thing is from the candidate's perspective, if my county wasn't affiliated back on December 13th, this is definitely going to keep me out, like Mr. Westbrook has said, 2 years from being a candidate. I do like the fact that we're doing it 10 days prior to the candidate's application, because that at least gives the candidate a surety that at least their county is being affiliated at the time that they're filing. So I may not be exactly affiliated on the 13th, but 10 days prior, somebody else had already started the process to get affiliated. So I think we should go back to the way it was prior on the time frame because of the candidates that we're hoping to, recruit. Thank you.
I just wanted to verify and see what we're actually voting on now. This is the, you're talking about the.
Correct.
To change just the date.
Right, the original one is still in place, this is just amending to, I'm finding.
I have another potential amendment for that, we need some.
Okay. Mr. Perez, do you have something?
Yes, Brandon Perez, ST9. I just wanted to make sure that I fully understood what Arthur, what you said before. So it sounds like that with this amendment, that we may have a party that, or excuse me, without this, where these are right now, where there are county parties that have been created that don't have a chance to organically grow with proper EC and very proper paperwork. Do I understand that correctly?
I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah.
Are you asking if the way we're operating now, or are you asking about if this was in place?
We're operating now, that's the issue. There is no deadline, right?
There's no policy.
There is a policy, right? So that's the situation that come up where, so you got these counties that have their own organic, regionality, they made a whole cloth, so to speak.
There is sort of what I would call a declaration right now that prevents someone from, basically we're not going to spend time processing these things.
Right, so that's part of why I like to do it. I mean, the organizers are paperwork, but, maybe it's a short time span. So that's why you originally should allow more time for at least one organization meeting.
Yes.
One court meeting, and then visit convention.
Well, I would say it's not so much about them holding a particular meeting. It would be that credentials committee has already started working preparing. I don't think they've seen anything out yet for the counties, but I know the ability team has held several meetings to try to help get counties established and set up. And that work's already been happening. So these new counties will be in catch-up mode. Like one was appointed today,
Right.
it would be in catch-up mode.
I think I fully understood the original date of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Micey, and then.
Colby might see this, I changed my mind, I didn't want to talk about this. I don't know that it needs to be amended, but I do have a question. The word established is in this motion, and in my mind, established means they've already gone through the process and been approved. And I think we're discussing, what we're trying to discuss in here is when the application has to go in, not when the county is established. And I think that can cause some confusion and maybe affect people's judgment on how much time is needed. I don't know if it's not straight on that. I don't like the word established in this original motion.
I get what the author is trying to do, so I call the question.
All right, so the question has been called, that would be on the amendment that we're currently. Establishment of these affiliates, to be 30 days prior to the precinct convention.
The current motion is on the board.
Thank you. All right, so the question has been called, the question currently is to amend the main motion to read this way instead of the way it was originally. One second. And is there any objection to calling the question? All right, we'll proceed to a vote on this amendment. So all in favor of this amendment so that it will read the way, let's see.
Oh, sorry.
All in favor of the amendment, this amendment, raise your hand. I see 7 in favor. All opposed?
Don't fail.
Who's 12? Opposed. So the motion fails.
So we're back to the original language.
No. Because people came in since I called. Okay, so the motion fails. So we are back at the, show us where we're back, what we're back to. Yes, I'm gonna move the temporary county, sorry. Temporary county affiliates may be established up to 10 days before the deadline to file an application for nomination to become a candidate for the party until after the adjournment of the state convention. So the net effect of this is a county may be affiliated up to 10 days before the deadline to file. Filing deadline for December, and then adjournment of the convention is, state convention is when they, the word established means is that the process for the affiliation is completed. 10 days, up to 10 days before the filing deadline.
Until is still a problem also. I think it's the correct grammar, based on the exchange from the negative to the positive.
Can we correct this?
Mr. Holcomb, I have you on deck from earlier, so you're still, okay. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Trey Holcomb, City District 10. I've got a question. How common in current occurrence is it that you have a county that wants to fill? Is that something that's happened?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is it common?
Yes.
No.
Well, it depends.
That's an arguable point.
I'd say about 3 or 4.
My question,
Yeah, I was thinking there were 6 that have come through, but it's, I think it's a lot.
You would like that? Well, he's the one that's made this motion. So I'm just asking, I mean,
Mr.
I'd kind of like to know how that affects, how that has affected counties that may have missed the deadline. And we're, disenfranchised when we go participate in the party because of that. If that's the case, it's common for it.
Is it common? It's hard to speak to without that information. I think there's been 3 applications come in since Nathan declared the deadline.
And I will say that he gets the records and he gets those records, and if they're saying 3, then it's been 3. In my mind, it's more.
That's this year, right?
That's this year. And I really don't, in the past, I can't speak to common. My point that I would focus on more is the fact that we have people that clearly have had pushes in the past to affiliate a lot of counties that have been affiliated. There was no deadline, and we lost a lot of those counties. I would make that, I know that point more certainly than the question you asked.
Thank you. I just have a quick
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry, I did overlook the person here. You still want to?
Yes, I still want to talk.
Okay, then you're next. Sorry.
I support this motion. I'd like to call all remaining questions. We have 12 of these to go through in a limited amount of time.
So who is that?
Mike
That
Dooley.
was Mike too.
Mike
Thank
Goldman.
you.
We can call all questions, which is just one right
It
now.
wasn't when I
It
started.
was when you started.
All one.
Somebody beat you to it and didn't call all of them.
Thank you.
That's
All
motion.
right. On this actual motion, so the motion on the floor is to adopt this policy. Temporary county affiliates may be established up to 10 days before the deadline to file an application for nomination to become a candidate for the party until after the adjournment of the state convention. To your point, where it's a grammatical issue, not necessarily an error, but we all know what it means.
I'm sorry.
All right, so all in favor of adopting this motion and thus establishing a policy on the matter? All opposed? Five. So. Motion fails. Actually, no.
What?
It's based on who votes. I'm talking about the.
So the quorum numbers changed.
You're right. The motion passes. Okay. Yeah, we got through that. We got through.
There's some good ones here. Let's go.
I'll move, how much time are we working? 2 minutes? Oh, wow. I'll move, number 2, formation of coalitions.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Does it need to be read aloud? I can read it
Can
aloud.
someone else read it?
Order, please.
All right, I need order in the room, please. We've got a motion on the floor. It's about to be read aloud.
The political department may initiate work to establish an ongoing coalition with another organization, also known as coalition partner, with approval of the chair or vice chair. When starting the process, the political department must notify the SLEC. The political department will work to establish a coalition agreement that meets the requirements found under the coalition agreement section. Any final coalition agreement will be presented to the SLEC at least 30 days before it can be established between LP Texas and the other organizations, so that SLEC may take action to reject the agreement or stop the coalition process. After that period, if the SLEC has taken no action, the coalition may be established by unanimous consent of the party officers. Coalition agreements. Any coalition agreement shall resolve the following concerns. How long the coalition will last or when it should be considered for renewal. No coalition may be perpetual. Shall be authorized for use between both organizations. What data, if any, shall be authorized for sharing and how it will be used between both organizations. Any limitations on the scope of use in using the name or official document of either organization. An omission statement making the purpose of the coalition clear. Coalition records. Records of each active coalition partner with active coalition agreements shall be maintained by the secretary. Such records shall include any necessary information about the coalition along with the coalition agreement, a main point of contact for the coalition partner, and the termination or renewal date for the coalition. The secretary shall also maintain a list of past and inactive coalition partners with the relevant coalition dates, but other documents may be retained at discretion of the party officers.
Second.
The word coalition has no meaning to me anymore.
We have a motion to adopt that.
Mike Doolin,
So that's
second.
been seconded. Is there any objection to adopting this proposal or this policy on forming coalition? Right,
Can I move to extend?
Yes.
Move to extend for 15 more minutes.
Second.
The objection to 15 more minutes.
objection? Okay. Do you need to speak to your motion?
I can speak to it.
Okay.
So the issue of coalitions has come up several times over this cycle and past cycles. And the question is, which coalitions are we actually maintaining? And we don't really have agreement. So I sent this to Frank a little bit for him to look over. And of course, this was posted with everything else in SLEC on January 24th. So I just wanted to, my goal was to establish at least an initial framework. I was hoping someone else would write this actually, but I want to establish some sort of framework so that we would have a process in place how to properly form coalitions. I'm not going to claim this is the most perfect one, but it's better than just voting on we're a coalition with X entity and not having any clue what that means.
Okay, who objects?
Frank?
Craig Malone, Stephen 7. I just really object to the 30-day requirement in forming SLEC, and the reason behind that is simply because I think the whole progenitor of this motion was the kind of technical fiasco that kind of got brought up pretty quickly. At least maybe the 30 days would have given us enough time to establish a coalition prior to the event that they wanted to put on. So I don't know if I could move to just amend it to 7 days or something that's a little bit, makes it more expeditious in the future. I think that's enough time for SLEC to review it, I hope, that everyone's, not informed at least once a week.
You'd think.
Is that an official motion?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
So you're making an amendment? I'm making a motion to amend.
Now it is.
To amend the word, 30 days, parentheses, 30 to 7, parentheses, 7.
Okay, so this is great.
I'll second.
All right, we have an amendment to shorten the time basically from 30 days to 7 days. It has been seconded. Is there any objection to that amendment?
I'll object.
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel that you've already spoken to your amendment?
Yes.
To your objection?
I want to say I'm very sympathetic to what Frank's trying to do. There's certainly we can change this number. I don't know if 7 days is the appropriate number though, because I mean, like I said, I published this on
Actually,
January
it's
24th, and I'm not sure everyone's seen this. And easily a week can go by, and people say, well, I don't know what's going on because they were at work or something. It's not that they're diligent about checking the form, but they might be a select member, and that just takes time to filter out. So I'm sympathetic to what you're trying to do, and I guess we'll pick what the correct number is, but I think 7 is too short. I think 30 days is pretty good for waiting. And I also don't think that we'll always be in that position of being in a hurry. Like, I think we would have gone with Texas Gold, we would have gone through the process earlier, and we just would have been done differently. So, but if y'all want to change it to the number, that's fine. I think 7 is fine.
I saw Mr. Hanson and then you.
So this allows for anti-business practices in a particular arena. It allows us to function a little bit more as a entity that is build partnerships. I'm for this, not for the 7 days. The thought process that's been put there that I see is allowing for a lot of good checks and balances. Right? Someone has a window, I think 7 days is for the window. It also has a check and balance, we just have to go back and forth the effective team. I'm not for the amendment, I can put it.
Point of personal privilege. Could everybody please use the microphones? Everybody on the stream is saying they can't hear us when we're debating.
Yes, so people on the stream can't hear us, we can't hear all.
Yeah, you guys
They can hear you just fine.
But if you're, from the floor, if you'll move to the microphone, please.
For the stream, please come to the microphone that's there. Thank you. Or project, just, okay. All right, Ms. Craig.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm also for the motion, not for the amendment to 7 days. I think 30 is great. But to add to the whole Texas Gold thing, they wanted to do that event for us for over a year. We had plenty of time to come to announce us for that. So I don't take that into consideration for this 7 days versus 30. That's why I would say 30.
Mr. Hale, I think it's.
Call the question.
Mr. Hale, let's call the question. The bulky question, which is the amendment.
Yes.
Changing to 7 days. One second.
Second.
Is there any objection to calling the question on the amendment? All right, proceed to vote on the amendment itself. So we're focusing only on the change of this 30 days to the 7 days part. Just so everybody understands where we are. All in favor of the amendment changing from 30 days to 7 days? I see 2. All opposed? All right, the motion fails. Okay, so we are back at the main motion, which is 30 days. Everything else that they said. I see. Hanson, Hale, here, Dewey.
I'm a little worried that we're done the whole question.
Alright, so the question has been called, basically it's on the main motion, the coalition motion.
Who called the question?
Second Hanson. Is there any objection to calling the question? There you go, objection. To a vote on the main motion, all in favor of the main motion to establish the policy for coalition.
The main motion? Yeah.
C-23. All opposed? 1. Motion passes. So we have a coalition policy, and we amended.
I'll move number 3, conflict of interest in the NDA.
A second, like doing SD16.
You're giving me a lot of work here, sir. I'm saying.
Who, me?
No. I'm thinking that.
I read what I. I thought she was. We got us.
Yeah.
Was there a second?
I seconded it.
Oh, okay. All right, the part that's crossed out here, I had previously written back when we passed the policies, amendment to the organization manual before. And it was a bit vague and hand wavy, so I was trying to elaborate a little more and expand it out. And this, basically the secretary is in charge of maintaining the document, and it gives a little more information about what the document's purpose. And I added in the SLEC needs to approve that document, whatever that NDA is. So I added that requirement in, which we'll need to do at some point, hopefully soon. I did not go over the NDA or the conflict of interest document either. I did not. It's not part of, changing that is not part of this, so it'll need to be reviewed at some point. Hopefully that will be. But this just sets out what it is. You know, I just wanted to expand it out further to make a little more progress, because this is something we've talked about a few times.
Question.
All right, Mrs. Brown?
Yeah, question, how do you define a conflict of interest? Well, that would be in the document.
We already do it, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that because people want to talk about it, that there was objection.
Second, everybody.
Does someone ask for it to be read? I'm hearing voices that oh, yes, I'm not, I mean, can someone read it?
Sure.
That would be fine.
Under the existing conflict of interest subsection, strike all policy language and add, the secretary shall maintain a conflict of interest agreement document as approved by the SLEC that contains information for identifying and addressing potential conflicts of interest that may exist among party officers, SLEC representatives, employees, volunteer staff, contractors, and volunteers with regard to their party function and positions. The agreement shall include a process for declaring a conflict of interest. Remove the following from data storage and use. The confidentiality agreement document, NDA, or non-disclosure agreement shall be maintained by the Records Department, and non-format changes to the document must be approved by the SLEC. Under SLEC policies, add a new section titled Non-Disclosure Agreement with the following policy. The secretary shall maintain a non-disclosure agreement, also known as an NDA or confidentiality agreement, document which shall be approved by SLEC. It shall establish the scope and use of relevant party data for party officers, SLEC representatives, employees, volunteer staff, contractors, and volunteers with regard to their party function and positions. Non-disclosure agreement shall clearly indicate all signers with date signed, the period of the agreement covered, the reason for which it is being signed, the description of data being shared, the scope and limitations of use for any party data shared, and what the signer must do with any held party access or data at the end of the agreement period. Was that loud enough for you to hear?
Perfect, that was beautiful. You're just incredible, Julie.
That's what being there.
All right, so this policy has been, this policy has been moved and seconded. Is there objection to adopting it? There are no objections. So it's adopted.
That's how we do it.
I move number 4, special project section.
Special project?
Special project.
All right, who's reading it?
I can read it again. The special project subsection shall be moved to its own main section. The following language shall be modified. Active special projects shall be tracked by the secretary instead of party officers and records department, and a list of special projects shall be provided to SLEC members upon request.
Second.
All right, any objections to this amendment?
Motion.
Okay, just a second.
So, there is an objection. Do you need to speak to your motion?
I think it's simple enough. I don't know what to do.
Okay, Mr. Burns, I assume you are objecting to it. Would you like to explain why first and then propose your amendment?
Yes. I think it needs to be more specific. Yes, I'm perfectly fine with the secretary tracking the existence of these special projects, anything non-financially related to it. But I think it is the treasurer's responsibility to track the finances. I think we need to be very clear about that in operations manual. Or that would be confused that the secretary has the power to audit or responsibility to cover the financial aspects that are involved.
I get what you're saying. I guess it's always up to the interpretation of people reading it, right? We have special projects in our organization right now, and this is mostly focused on who's keeping track of them and stuff. If you want to be more specific, I don't think it's needed, but I'm not. If you're worried about that, I don't have a problem adding language in. The treasurer clearly is responsible for the part. I don't think that's a question.
Actually, I also believe that's fine with special projects.
It's not a sticking point for me.
The motion belongs to y'all. If that makes you more comfortable, well, now, hold
Move to ex-
We are in the middle of something, so we can't continue with this without extending time, but once we dispose of this particular one, on the floor, we're going to be. So, are you making the amendment? Okay, all right, so no amendment was made. Anybody else wishing to speak on this? Do you need to say something else about it?
No.
Okay. All right.
Just with the discussion with the phone, or just the motion to amend.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak on this? All right, if there's no further discussion on this, any objections proceed to a vote on it? All right, here we go. All in favor of adopting this amendment, the policy manual, raise your hand. More? Opposed? Alright. We are on this particular item.
For how long?
It's not.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
This content moved to extend by 10 minutes. Thank you. Any objection to extending by 10 minutes? No objection, we're extending for 10 minutes. Please
All right.
proceed, Mr.
I move number 5, special fund section.
Okay, you ready?
Sure.
Under financial policies, a new subsection called special funds shall be created and the following fund policies shall be moved under it. Convention fund, legal fund, legislation and action fund.
I just want to do everything and come back in the same here to make it easier.
Second. Yeah, so it's no
Okay,
brainer.
moved and seconded, any objections to
I do not object to this.
All I needed to hear was withdraw my objection.
Any further discussion on this item? Any objection to adopting this policy?
You see my objection.
Hearing none, it's adopted.
Okay.
I move number 6, expenditures and reimbursements.
Expenditures and reimbursements, okay?
The existing expenditures and reimbursement subsection shall have all existing language removed and shall be renamed to reimbursements. The following language shall be added under reimbursements. All expenditures for the party made by a person other than a party officer or department head as authorized by the treasurer must be given a purchase order identification number, also known as a PO, that is associated with the expected cost, reason, and date of purchase. An invoice shall be submitted that contains the purchase order number. All requested purchase orders shall be tracked by the treasurer. Such purchase orders shall be accessible for a review by any SLEC member that has signed an NDA.
Second.
That should be a NDA, by the way.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
This policy item has been moved and seconded. Any objections to adding this policy? If there's no objections, policy is added.
I'm in number 7, staff and volunteer staff positions communication.
Okay. Interviews for department positions will be conducted by an interview panel of no fewer than 3 people and must include an officer, the director of the department for which the candidate is applying, or a SLEC member if a director is not established, and any other SLEC or staff member. Interviews may be conducted individually or at the same time, in person or by remote meeting. All members of the interview panel must submit interview notes in writing for reference. All members of the interview panel must agree unanimously to make an appointment with final approval from the chair or vice chair. When a person is being considered for a paid or volunteer staff position, the SLEC shall be notified before any interviews may proceed.
Now, I'll point out, this is existing policy. I'm not changing any existing policy. This is the underlying part of the new policy.
So it's an addition.
Yes,
Ah, so this is the only thing we're voting on right here.
yes.
Okay.
All right, a motion has been made to add that language, the underlying language that you saw there highlighted.
Objection.
I hear an objection. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Mr. Thomas?
Sure, I'll just mention that this is just, I have a recurring theme since I've been involved in the party about collaboration and communication, and this just goes along with it. I think it's good to have, I've often referred to SLEC as an oversight committee, and that's how I see it. And to oversee things, you have to be aware of things, and this adds communication to the process.
Mr. Emily, would you like to speak to your objection?
Certainly, I have no objection to the idea that SLEC should have the oversight. I object to the specific wording of the notification that gives SLEC the right of pocket veto and just sitting on there needs to be some provision in the my idea is like that's 24 hours to respond, because what I'm trying to do is expedite the interview process, but there is some amount of time that SLEC should be required to insert any objection, and then, and if nobody says anything, then we move forward. That's my suggestion.
Request for information.
Okay.
Does the intention of this, actually say that SLEC has to vote up or down, or does it just say they will be informed that it's going forward?
Again, reading stuff is all.
The question, the point of information I was asked is essentially what is the effect of this? Does this mean that SLEC has to approve or reject before interviews can proceed, or what? So, Mr. Thomas?
So any language of right is always going to get interpretation with those words. To me, I read this as it shall, like, nothing can move forward without the notification happening, but there's no wait, that you can notify and then immediately move to interviews.
Okay.
Are you wanting a waiting period?
But what?
Are you wanting a waiting period built into it?
What I want is to not waste my time, and I don't want to schedule a bunch of interviews and have people go through the interview process and then have some person who wasn't paying attention come back 3 weeks later and say, oh, I just noticed in the forum that you posted a thing about a thing.
Too bad, this just gives requirement for notification.
We don't have any right to.
But it clearly anticipates, like, why notify at all unless.
So that they can check.
And should that be limited in time? Should there be a reasonable amount of time within which if no objection is heard?
But you're right, it goes on time limit, you're giving select.
Mr. Erling has expressed his concern, I still have you on words too, so you can respond to that if you want to do it.
I was wanting to make a motion to amend, to add a time frame on there and specify that it's a notification, but you have a preload, even if it's 3 days. I was gonna recommend 3 days, just so that we have this and not have an approval. It's a notification, so it gives somebody a time frame, and we're not specifying that we need approval of SLEC on the forms. Just to clarify what we've got, like you said, for transparency purposes, but we do get a notification.
I have a question. About 3 days before.
Yes.
Oh, is that?
Because you have to, yes.
I honestly don't care if there's a waiting period on before that receive the interviews, but if that's y'all's concern, SLEC has the right to pull Yankee staff member anytime.
Yep,
sure.
So I do not feel that's irrelevant, but.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Burns?
point of parliament procedure.
Mr. Westbrook?
I've heard 2 people use the term proposed amendment,
And
and
they have.
okay, so those were not amended.
Right.
Did you want?
Okay, all right, that's what I was inquiring about, thank you.
No, I withdraw my amendment.
Mr. Burns, and then I have Ms. Brown, and then.
So just kind of both points. Andrew, I think it's clarification here. Yeah, I think what this is basically saying is it's requiring information, but it's not requiring or allowing SLEC to really do anything, even if
timeframe, and then what Dooley is saying is if we stand the timeframe on for 3 days, then it leaves nothing to interpretation. And I don't mind the 3 days, because at least then, anybody on any select member, you can go to the select member and say, well, you had 3 days to raise objections before we move to proceed with interviews. And with a short enough time frame, it doesn't slow down the interview process. So I really think what Dooley is saying is it's time to invest in both worlds.
I was fine with that.
Wow.
Arbitrarily, just like that.
And there's no requirement to select Dooley in current language. It's just the requirement that they know.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I don't like sees that there are interviews being conducted. Somebody else might want to apply for the position and also be interviewed if they see that the position is open. For example, when the political action department was open, I had no idea that there was an opening. I would have applied also when you were appointing or interviewing Frank for the position. He's doing great. I mean, I might have applied for the position as well had I known that it was being also considered. It was not posted previously.
Shannon?
Is the purpose of this to give SLEC veto power, or is the purpose of this to give us the opportunity to relay our opinion of the interview to the members?
The purpose of this is to, so that SLEC is aware of someone being interviewed, and the SLEC can do whatever it wants after that. The only purpose of this is communication. That's the only purpose. SLEC will have to decide what it wants to do after that. They can do nothing. Just sit there.
Popcorn's ready.
Time has expired on this item. We will proceed unless someone extends.
Move to expend time by 5 minutes.
I hear a motion to extend time. Did I hear a motion to extend time for 5
You did,
minutes?
man, 5. Yeah.
Second.
And a second. Any objection to extending for 5?
Okay.
I have an objection.
Doesn't matter, you want to round up, go.
Yep.
On this issue.
Well, it can go straight to a vote without extending time.
Okay, I thought you just said. We had
It
extend
goes
time.
to a
to-
vote automatically
Oh, then I withdraw.
unless someone
I withdraw,
extends
okay, I withdraw.
time. Okay,
Mine.
he's decided that he doesn't need the time.
I misunderstood.
Does that cover your objection?
It does.
Thank you. All right,
Motion
so.
to extend time.
What?
Sorry.
Okay, so time has not been extended, which means we're going straight to a vote on this particular. All in favor of whatever the vote is.
Burns did that offer motion.
Yes.
Wait, what are we voting on?
We're voting on the motion. Point of order, point of order. A motion to
I need everyone to stop talking. What I have said multiple times is time has not been extended. Because time has not been extended, it is expired. We are now proceeding automatically to a vote on the thing that's on the screen, except it's not on the screen.
Madam Chair, would you address my point of order,
Add.
please?
What is your point of order?
That motion to extend time.
Okay.
It's not been heard.
But you hadn't expressed yourself that way. Your hand was over your mouth and I could just hear you saying words.
Oh.
So you're now wanting to extend for 5 minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, are there objections to extending for 5 minutes?
Objection.
Okay, Mr. Burns, please speak to why you need 5 minutes.
I would like to amend the motion to include a caveat for time frame. It's all, I basically want to do what you offered originally before you drew.
So you want to extend time for the purpose of considering an amendment,
Yes.
okay? Who objected?
I object. Let's vote on the motion.
Okay?
We don't need a time frame.
All right, so, we need to vote on whether or not we're extending for 5 minutes. Any other discussion on the extension for 5 minutes? All right, we'll proceed to a vote on the extension for 5 minutes. All in favor of extending for 5 minutes for the purpose of entertaining an amendment from Mr. Burns on this matter? Raise your hand. See 15, opposed? Passes. All right, so we're extended for 5 minutes. Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Okay. Right there, there we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh. Okay. That's okay.
Madam Chair, please inquire over.
Mr. Westbrook?
Where do
We
you
are, ladies and gentlemen, we're at ease while the secretary records the amendment.
Where are you not correct when you originally stated that the time that expires and that motion clears his time, therefore, the motion to extend time for amendment on that particular time for those out of order?
Does this look correct, Joe?
That is correct, but it's up for interpretation, I suppose.
I just want to get confirmation.
I want to double check. Okay. All right, the motion to amend.
Right, we need order. Secretary has posted the language on the screen. This is the amendment being proposed right now, and now we have less than 5 minutes. Mr. Burns moved that. So the motion that's being proposed is to amend the language proposed by Mr. Thomas to read, when a person is being considered for a paid or volunteer staff position, SLEC shall be notified and interviews may not proceed until 72 hours after SLEC has been notified.
One second.
We have an objection, Mr. Burns, please speak to your motion.
Basically, I think SLEC should be given the opportunity at least a few days time frame, whether it's 40 hours, 74 days, to do their own due diligence on that person and then notify the interviewers of what they have found prior to interviews taking place. A lot of times, I know for me, when I've interviewed candidates through our, that are becoming county chair or what have you, I ask them my questions, and I do something after I've interviewed, then I find out something. So I had no idea I was interviewing that person. So this at least gives a little bit of a buffer to allow SLEC to do a little bit of their own vetting if they want to, without slowing down the process.
Okay, who objected?
I actually think this kind of limits SLEC in a weird way because we weren't telling anybody that they had time limit before, now they do. Also, it still doesn't really change anything because it just says that they can proceed, but SLEC could still make objections after that. Doesn't mean that they couldn't. Also, this has been up for 3 weeks, and many people on SLEC had no idea that it was there. So whether you have 3 days or 3 months, it may not make a difference.
That's very good point.
Any stuff?
Alder, SD 19, let's call questions.
Thank you, sir. Alright, we have called all questions, which means the amendment here as well as the main motion. So we are going back-to-back votes here. The first vote is going to be to vote on this amendment, which basically establishes a timeline. As soon as we dispose of that one, whether it passes or fails, we go immediately to the main motion, which is to actually adopt the policy. Everyone clear? Okay. All questions have been called. Was that second?
Second.
People cheered. Any objections to all questions? Sweet. Okay, here we go. All in favor of this amendment? Again, this language here adding in the time frame to what was already proposed. All in favor of this amendment adding this time frame? I see 13. Opposed?
Ooh.
That passes.
That's
Okay, so now we go to the main motion, so this becomes the main motion. Everybody clear on that? So now we're voting to actually make this a policy. Right, all in favor of adopting this policy? Twenty-one? Opposed? Motion passes. Right. And once again, time has expired. Mr. Thomas.
I'll move to extend for 15 minutes.
There's a motion to extend for 15 minutes. Seconded. Any objection to extending for 15 minutes? To hear more policies? Hearing no objection. On we go.
All right, you may read it again?
I'm moving number 8, staff and volunteer staff position.
This is easy, guys.
So it looks like the only change you're proposing is the folding out in red to secretary.
Correct.
Okay. A list of volunteer and paid staff positions along with who is currently in such roles shall be maintained by the secretary instead of the party officers and records department. A list of who is in each staff position shall be made available to any SLEC member upon request in accordance with our data use policy and unless prohibited elsewhere in this manual. If any vacant positions are sought to be filled, then an online application form shall be made available.
Okay, so moving forward, we're going to try not to run out of time again. If it's just an amendment to an existing policy, I'm going to leave it to you guys to read the actual policy and then just refer up here to what the changes is. And Stephanie can read what the changes, what the net effect is, if anything. But in that case, it's basically changing who maintains the list, and it is now becoming the secretary. Of course, it's just you. It has been that change to the existing policy regarding maintenance of the list being changed to the secretary from officers. Okay, any objections to that amendment to our policy? No objections, passed.
I'll move number 9, communications of staff and volunteer staff termination.
So my correct, the only thing that's changing is volunteer.
The title's changing, it's changing the authority to terminate someone from just the chair to the majority of the party officers, and it's adding the, if the party officers terminate any paid or volunteer staff member, then notice must be given to the SLEC.
Okay, so we currently have a policy for termination of volunteer staff members. It was that the chair or SLEC with the majority of SLEC could terminate. The proposed change is that a majority of the officers or a majority of SLEC can now terminate. Is everyone clear on the net effect of this?
Move to terminate the comms director.
All right, so it has been moved and seconded. Any objections to this amendment to our existing policy?
I don't really object to go on here for 21.
Thank you. We have an objection for the purpose of debate. Mr. Thomas, please speak to your amendment.
As far as changing, this goes along with my approach to bylaws too. I like to, when it comes to making decisions, select reports always has decision power to make what decisions at once. I like to spread it out between all the party officers and stuff like this. So it's not a single person. It's nothing, I'm not party to witness. So don't read that into it. I get along quite well with it. And the last part is just adding the same as before. I'm adding communication to the process so that SLEC is aware of what staff changes.
Could I ask the chair?
You can actually speak to your objection.
Well, I would like to hear your opinion on the specific that I'm not necessarily opposed to it, you're the chair, how does it impact you and your ability?
It actually would change nothing for me because when I have done this, it was not unilateral.
Okay.
I just took responsibility for it.
Yeah.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this?
This is an easy one, guys.
Okay, Ms. Rayo has called the question.
Second.
Any objections to call the question?
Objection. I just have a question for Arthur, basically, there's 4 party officers that I'm aware of, so the majority would be 3 or more? Or what happens if there's 2 to 2?
It would have to be 3.
Okay, so that would be 3 to 4. Okay, so following up, since Mr. Hanson would probably want to hear what I have to say about that. That would mean if I, as the chair, wanted to terminate someone, I would need 2 other officers. Then maybe it wasn't the right thing to do. We'll have to find out next week.
Whitney.
I see Ms. Prather, no one else.
So I do want to add to this, I, as an officer and a department head, a director of a department, because the treasurer is automatically over the finance department, I think we need to go forward with this, because if the termination, just some big coincidence, it happens under my department, I have to say, instead of somebody else. So I am in big favor of this, yeah. In this case, with this office, there are also a department here.
Anyone else who can speak on this? I see Stephanie and Mr. Westbrook.
I'll just concur with Kate. This just specifies what we're already doing. To be perfectly frank, nothing has been unilateral. And I wholly agree that we should be, putting this down in writing, both as a department head for records, for secretary, and as an executive committee member. So I agree.
And it's, we've been operating, without unilateral, but that's not to say the next. Right.
Correct.
Yes.
Mr. Westbrook?
Well, I preface this with saying that when I haven't looked at everything that's surprise, surprise. But my question is, by taking volunteers away, doesn't that eliminate any policy for them? So we were talking about somebody working for one of the officers, for example.
Here, I'm gonna put in here.
Nobody works for an officer.
So we got rid of volunteers. Right? Right?
Well, to your point, Mr. Westbrook, yes, because I'm now seeing a bit of a discrepancy too, because if we're removing volunteer, which this whole policy originally was about, but we're leaving it here. Because I think the intent was to incorporate these decisions being made, whether they're being made for paid staff or volunteer staff. We do have some commission staff. Problem is now, it's not diving with that, so.
Well, okay, can I speak to that?
Yep.
I did not know how to deal with that because the paid staff we have are actually under contract. So that is a little different, so I just left it how it was, even though, I didn't want to remove this term, volunteer staff here. This is the whole section, so I wanted to make sure the whole section wasn't seen as a volunteer-only section. Because this part does apply to paid deal with people that might be under contract. I didn't want to deal with that.
Sure.
Well, if they're paid staff, not contractors, which we don't
The majority vote is very concerned that might be more specific. We're doing majority votes in here, but that doesn't necessarily mean a true majority of all select members in this room. Is it 3/4 of the officers, or if there's a meeting?
It's just specific transition for officers.
Is that a majority?
Well, majority of officers is going to be 3.
Yeah, majority of officers.
A majority of selected does not specify. That would probably depend if you're in the business meeting like here. If you're providing a quorum, it will be the majority of the entirety, because that's how electronic votes happen.
And I just wanted to let you know that it might have that else.
Anyone else? Seeking to be recognized on this issue? Okay, if there is no further debate desired on this, we will proceed to vote on it. Can we see the language again? Right, so it's the striking of the word volunteer, changing party officers from chair, which means now a majority of the officers or a majority of SLEC, and then adding in the language relating to terminating, if we terminate any. Right, all in favor of this amendment to the existing policy? Raise your hand. Twenty-three, opposed? 23 the motion passes. Thank you. Do we start?
4 minutes and change.
I move number 10, invoice requirements.
A new subsection titled Expenditures and Invoices shall be added under financial policies that contains the following language. All party expenditures shall have an invoice or other detailed record indicating their purpose, and it shall be maintained by the treasurer for at least 6 years. Such records shall be accessible for review by any SLEC member that has signed an NDA.
Okay. So we have a motion to add the policy related to invoices and expenditures. It has been seconded. Any objections to adding this? Hearing no objections, we have added that to the policy.
I move number 11, adding section number references.
Add main section numbers and subsection numbers to the existing organizational manual with examples.
Yeah, that's super simple. Yeah. I'm not even sure this actually needed a motion, but I just know.
Second. All right, this is just a formatting.
It'll be easier to reference.
Yeah, a way to reference by number policy in the manual itself. So, any objections to this? Mr. Westbrook?
I just have an inquiry. I'm wondering why you use, well, you say examples, that may or may not be what has to be in there, and I'm assuming what's there will be used. And my question is there some reason you use 1.1 as opposed to numbers, letters, and so on and so forth?
Mostly because that's what we used in the recent temporary bylaws for the counties, and it seemed to work really well, and it was easy to find stuff. So I thought it was a good system.
The reason I inquired is because I have about 30 years as a document control manager, and it's my opinion that method is more confusing than the other methods where one uses Roman numerals, ones, upper and lowercase letters, and so forth, but I will not object to your doing it that way. I just object because I want to be part of it.
If y'all get confused about it, it can be changed.
So otherwise, I would object.
It would be easy to reformat.
There's nothing there now.
All right, any further discussion on this, or on this amendment to the policy committee itself? All right, any objection to adopting this formatting method? I hear no objection, it's done.
I move number 12, check cancellation.
To change the existing policy, check cancellation and reissue. In the event a check drawn on a LP Texas bank account is lost or destroyed, the payee must notify the party by submitting a lost check request to the treasurer. The treasurer shall conduct the payee via email of the receipt of the request, and the date of that email shall be considered the date of notification. So it's changing some minor language here.
Okay, related to when we write checks and those are either lost or destroyed and they need to be replaced, it just clarifies the policy of how that gets done.
Second.
Right, moved and seconded, any objections to this? Hearing none, new policy is adopted, well, the policy is amended.
I'll move number 13, temporary county affiliate bylaws.
Motion to amend, Clement, SC 17.
There's nothing to amend because this motion is not yet on the floor.
Read the dead.
But your first-
Okay, so you're talking about 13. Temporary county affiliate bylaws. Add a new subsection named counties under organizational policy with a new subsection titled temporary affiliate bylaws. The secretary shall maintain the temporary county bylaws template as approved by the SLEC. These temporary bylaws shall be used as the official bylaws of any newly established temporary county affiliate until the affiliate establishes a different set of bylaws. These temporary bylaws shall be made available upon request to any voting member of LP Texas.
Right, we have a motion.
Second.
And for the record, time has expired, but we're gonna dispose of this.
Madam Chair, I have language that I will pass on to the secretary, and if it pleases the body, perhaps we can hear from neighbor Watts about the language.
Not yet.
Madam Chair, perhaps we can send it to.
Yes, thank you. We are at ease until the secretary has the language. We're over here from the orders of the.
Madam Chair, might I motion for a 5-minute recess?
Actually, that's not a terrible idea. Is there any objection to a 5-minute recess? All right, so that gives us back in here at 3:18.
Okay, I just need, so we know.
I can
Okay, I have the motion to amend everything.
Start over. Which part is the amendment?
All right, we are, we'll be back in order here.
I think this is the last one.
This is the last one.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, are you going to do for me? Just move on up. We're
on page 17. We're almost to the end.
We're back over the. Madam Chair,
Well,
whenever you're ready.
Okay, we're good now. We've got four back in the room, so, I just need everybody to return to order. All right, the language where we left off, there was an amendment to establish temporary county bylaws template. Mr. Clements has an amendment, and it should be up on the screen for him now.
Madam Chair, do we need to have time to hold it over?
Do we need to do what?
Add time?
No. Did someone stop the clock while we were at recess?
We ran out of time. We ran out before.
We ran out before?
Yeah, you said we were finishing up.
Oh, no, I did say that we were gonna continue this one, but, how much time would you say?
I move that we add another 5 minutes.
Okay, so there's been a motion to add 5 minutes to
Second.
continue this. We were in the middle of it anyways, if we don't do this part, we just have to vote on what happened before. So, 5 more minutes, seconded, any objection? Okay, 5 minutes, go.
Madam Chair, please, the body, can we hear from Nathan Watts on this subject?
Any objections to hearing from Nathan Watts regarding this amendment? All right, Mr. Watts, please.
First of all, just a comment, as displayed on the screen, it doesn't show the cross out of the things that are being replaced. Possibly bring up the PDF copy that was emailed, and it will more clearly show the amendments. I appreciate that. So this is a great proposal that Arthur has, and sorry I didn't get a chance to workshop this with him beforehand. The purpose of the changes I proposed was just to clarify the county bylaws template that we developed and have made available. There's nothing about it that's temporary or somehow it can be incomplete. A full-fledged county affiliate can use the set of bylaws template as their official bylaws indefinitely. So the proposals here of the amendments just to make that more clear, and emphasizing that part of the template provides a process for the affiliate to amend their bylaws. So they don't have to keep that, but they also don't have to establish a different set of bylaws. They can keep this template permanently if they so wish.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion on the floor is basically establishing a county affiliate bylaws template. The amendment that we're currently considering, if it was seconded.
Second.
That we are currently considering, points out, it basically takes away anything that's referred to as a temporary set of bylaws. So it is a bylaws template that can be used to perpetually if they wanted to. And it includes the mechanism by which these counties can change their bylaws. All right, so at this point we are discussing the amendment itself. Are there any objections to this amendment? All right, hearing no objections, the amendment has passed. That brings us to the main motion of considering the county bylaws template. And establishing it as something you provide. So can you go? Yeah. Okay. All right, so we've got a motion to establish the county bylaws template. It has been seconded. Thank you. Are there any objections to establishing this as the bylaws template we would provide to county? No objections? They have now a county bylaws template. All right, we don't have time, 2 minutes.
Good. We're done with these.
So on the,
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we created the policy for it, and Mr. Thomas now has 15 minutes for us to adopt the actual county bylaws template.
I'll put it in the meeting folder, the kind of bylaws, the current bylaws. So I will move that we adopt the county bylaws template as soon as we present it.
And this is in the forum too, right, that they can.
Yes, someone, Nathan posted a link a while back in the forum. You want me to speak to it, Harlan?
Please go ahead.
So, counties we've had temporary new counties all the time for years, of course. And typically they're instructed, you need to set up your own county bylaws, which is a weird task for someone that's new. So, and it also creates a bootstrapping problem of, well, what do they do to call a meeting? Like, what are the process for calling a meeting? How is it official? There's really no bylaws for them to follow to establish that first business meeting. So this is an attempt to just hand them a set of bylaws that Nathan and I think are pretty good and allow them to follow that. This doesn't mean that they can't change their bylaws later if they want to, however they want. This is just setting out the initial bylaws that we'll use. We've added in things that they're like filling SLEC vacancies requires some bylaw sections and stuff. And we've added all that stuff in there to make sure all the standard stuff is covered. And we think it's a pretty good set of bylaws. Hopefully they'll take a look at it. Nathan and I, for sure. How many hours?
So was template for the county bylaws has been moved and has been seconded by Ms. Compton. Is there any objection to adopting this template for the county bylaws? There are no objections. Now they actually have the template. Right, Mr. Thomas is still in the spotlight for the rules committee report, but this time for 10 minutes, we'll see.
There's no motions here. I uploaded the report to the meeting folder, and I went in detail and stuff. I'm not going to read my report to you. I'll just mention again, John Wilford, Andrew Ameline, Teresa Rushing, Mike Dooley, Donovan Henke. Sorry, Donovan. Paul Dar and me, we're all those committee members. And I mentioned how much we met and stuff like that. And we passed a motion about the meeting on the 26th, being a presentation motion for people to present stuff to us. And then also there's a long list of just the titles of the proposals that we have and what we've approved, and we have 2 postponed ones. And also there's a list of work we want to do before we release the first draft, and we hope to do that very soon so that everyone can start taking a look at them. And mostly this was for Q&A time if anyone had questions about anything. I know there's not a lot to ask questions about, but if there are any, I'm happy to answer them. If not, that's fine. But I just mainly the 10 minutes in case anyone had questions.
So, does anyone have any questions for the rules committee with regard to the report that you have already received? Everybody good? Everybody's thrilled. All right, next item on the agenda. Yes, this is Mr. Lozano. We're going to talk about establishing our constitutional amendment positions. We have gone through this once before. That system seems to work okay. I'll follow your lead on how you like to do this.
Okay, everyone, so we have two constitutional amendments coming up on the May 7th election. That's normally the local and county elections that we're having this cycle. So there's two amendments, and I just want to handle them one at a time in case there's any. Hopefully they're not too controversial. They both have to do with everyone's favorite form of theft that the state likes to impose upon us. Maybe not the favorite form, but second favorite. And so I'll just go ahead and maybe read into the record the first proposition and then give kind of a little mini translation and then the recommendation based on our platform. So the first one is the constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to provide for the reduction of the amount of a limitation on the total amount of ad valorem taxes that may be imposed for the general elementary and secondary public school purposes on the residence homestead of a person who is elderly or disabled to reflect any statutory reduction from the preceding tax year in the maximum compressed rate of the maintenance and operation taxes imposed for those purposes on the homestead. So pretty simple. So yeah, essentially, last year HB3 was passed by the legislature, which allowed for a little bit of compression, which is just a tax reduction on residence homesteads. So basically, if you own a house or a homeowner, you get a little bit of a reduction. This is just allowing that same reduction to be applied to people who are elderly and disabled. And the reason they weren't included in HB3 is because their structure on the ad valorem deductions is a little bit different. This is a point in favor of those people who say that we shouldn't have such special classes of people. So they're having to fix their own mistake, basically. But the recommendation is based on our platform that State Party, Libertarian Party of Texas, supports the elimination of all property taxes. This, at least in my opinion, would help further that goal by reducing that for people who are elderly or disabled. And my only counter point about the special class of people is this at least moves us incrementally closer. And really, in this case, wouldn't actually change anything because that already applies to everyone.
Special classes already there.
Is there any questions, or can we make a motion? I would move to that this body recommend a yes vote on Proposition 1.
Second.
For us to adopt a position in favor of Prop 1. And it has been seconded. I'm hearing objection. So we will not talk about that. You feel you've already spoken to why you would say yes?
I've spoken to it. Yes.
Okay. Are you objecting? Someone else was, I think, so I can let someone else speak to the objection and then we can continue to discuss. Who wants to speak to the objection? Mr. Burton.
It's kind of an objection. I object to just recommending a yes vote. In the past, I've seen situations where, let's face it, we argue about anything.
No, we won't.
So my point is, like, in the past, when we've done these, we've pissed off a lot of our own membership because, like this special class situation, there was a lot of argument over that. Personally, I agree fully with Mr. Lozano's position on it. Any kind of incrementalism. If you get some freedom from government tyranny and I don't, I'm not going to bitch about it. Go for it. I'll keep fighting for mine and help you. But I understand people's complaint that you don't want these special classes, and that's a principled stand and position to take. So what I'd like to see us do as a party is if we do make a recommendation and we say yes, we fully explain the nuance of our position so that all the membership of the party understands and can agree to get on board with why we make the recommendation.
All right, I had, Mr. Burton had Renee, and I had Mr. Palm. Renee?
Yes, I actually, Mr. Burns expressed that I do. Special classes are part of the decay of our government, and so yes, we have a lot of language that speaks to that.
Okay. Mr. Harmon?
Okay, this one's to all my realtor friends in the room. When I read it the first time, I tried to get an answer for this, and I'm not sure. Yeah, how does that affect the over 65 exemption? Does it allow them to remove the over 65 exemption in favor of what, you see what I'm saying?
Are you asking me what the legislature means?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not sure. No, I'm saying, yeah, well, because you could also at the same time be doing something that you think is right. All right, but also at the same time empowering them to really screw them over later on the way that's written.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Hahn is bringing up is what does this do to any existing exemptions for the
Right.
65? And we don't know that.
Yeah, I couldn't find an answer. I just wanted, raise it.
I also want to remind everybody
Huh?
that when we went through this exercise last time.
Yeah, well, I did shit for a living.
11 of them or something, and some of them we took no position on.
Right.
So that would always still be an option, just say. There are some questions that I just can't answer.
Yeah.
And other than unless Mr. Zung can.
Well, I do want to speak to that, and I think there might be a little bit of confusion with the special classes, even though it is single in the South, this is a fix. So basically what they're doing is they're applying HB3, which was already passed by the legislature back in 2019, and they're applying it to the elderly and disabled, which because of that scheme that you're talking about, how they have a little bit of a different thing, that language of HB3 didn't apply to them. This fixes it. So they've already created special classes. They messed it up, and now they're trying to fix it. So this is kind of the reason why we probably don't want that, but this is not actually gonna confer any benefit that doesn't already exist. It's just gonna actually level the playing field, in other words. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
All right,
yeah. I've still got a certain amount of incredulity for just the idea, but it's cool.
I mean, it's just government at work,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're government.
Mr. Thomas?
How are we voting this? Do you intend to write a position statement?
Yes.
Yeah, I do intend to write a position statement.
Yeah.
However, all the nuance might not be able to be captured on a small placard. That's my only concern with that, but, yeah.
Do you want us, I guess we're comfortable with that.
It's not very expensive.
Though there are only 2 on this placard
Yes.
as opposed to the one we did previously, there might be more room for, okay. Mr. Westbrook?
I have a question and comment on the proposal. Do we know what SLEC did previously with regards to the similar subject?
You mean how did we handle the process?
Do we take no position on it before? Is that the question?
Well, not necessarily on this specific one, but we tackled, several of these, the last
One
one.
segue to this with regards.
Yes, we went through this process where we all did agree on or we just voted on our position, yes, no, or no position. And then, Frank and Mr. Moxley took those back and sort of crafted the language that we were going to use to go with it.
That's fine, that's all I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, so, I fall under both of those categories in my county. It really doesn't matter, because since I'm 100% disabled, according to the military, I don't have to pay any taxes for any of my property.
That's what he feels.
So, that's great for me, limited budget, but, all that being said, I think that anything the state's doing, that it's kind of like the federal government telling the state what to do when they don't have any authority constitutionally to do that. Same thing applies in this situation with the state. Let the counties do what they want to do with regards to their taxes and leave them alone. That's my
Point.
Okay, Mr. Pierre?
I'm gonna have to be a no on this one. It's basically taking a class that was already receiving a preferred rate and applying a
Potentially
further
turning into
discount
the
to
ordinary
that rate.
homestead rule, right?
It's not like re-leveling the playing field or anything like that. It's applying the same reduction that everyone else got to a group that already had.
Then
a
the
drastic-
special classes get that plus.
So I feel like it is furthering special cases, not necessarily fixing.
In a good direction.
Yeah, I mean,
Mr. Moxley?
Yeah, I was speaking in favor of this because I think there was some,
People in the room can't hear you.
I want to speak in favor of this because I think the last time we went through this exercise, the question of are we creating a special class led some of the members of this body to abstain or take no position. And it wasn't necessarily the fact that it was unequally applying benefits to special classes. It's that it created special classes. And as a request for information, would you say that this is creating a new special class at all?
No, the special classes are already.
They're already created.
This is just basically what my interpretation is fixing the mistake that was made by the government. The government fixing their own mistakes. Right? Yeah.
Mr. Russell?
I call the question.
Mr. Russell has called the question.
Second.
Seconded. Is there any objection to calling the question? All right, we will proceed to a vote on the question. And the question as it stands right now is that LP Texas is adopting a position of yes for Prop 1. That's what he moved. That's what was seconded. That's what we discussed. Some of you said you didn't like that one. The motion itself on the floor is that we will adopt a yes position. And then Mr. Lozano then will go back and craft the language that accompanies it in our rationale.
Request recommendation. If we vote yes to approve this recommendation, yes, are we rubber stamping the explanation Mr. Lozano comes up with? What is that?
So the way we did this last time, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we did last time was we kind of all agreed that Mr. Lozano and Mr. Moxley, as our communications director, would go back and put the language together. And I believe you guys actually put it on the forum for us for a while to look at, so that if we have any objections or anything, we could sort of iron that out. I need to know what the timeline is on this, though.
Well, it has to be before May 7th.
So we have time to do it that way, and there are only 2 this time, so.
But they're amenable to do it.
It has to be before early voting starts, actually.
Yeah, everybody's been this one.
And you agreed to handle it that way, to present your suggested language to us?
I mean, yeah, I just put it on the forum, and then people can take 3 months until after the election to get their objections in. Or you can do it sooner, it's up to you.
The new SLEC can come around and like.
Or wait till we tweet about it and slam us.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to take the position of yes in favor of Prop 1. All in favor of that, raise your hand. All opposed? Five. Motion passes. Okay, so very yes on that one.
And then number 2 should be even easier, so this one just says, the constitutional amendment increasing the amount of the resident homestead exemption from ad valorem taxation for public school purposes from $25,000 to $40,000. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. Currently, if you're a homeowner, special class, you get a $25,000 reduction. Now we bumped up to $40,000, which means you'll be, the government will feel less for you each time. That's only applies to homeowners though, so I guess if you're a business
Those are
owner.
increased by value of 150,000, so.
Yeah.
So, again, I move that, we take a position of yes on this because again, for the same reason, our platform states that we're against property taxes. This doesn't eliminate property taxes, but it does provide some limitation, it provides some discount.
Second. All right, we have a motion to adopt a yes position on Prop 2, which is essentially a decrease in the, basically,
An increase in the exemption.
Increase in homestead deduction, yeah.
Property taxes if you're a homeowner. It was seconded. I hear an objection to taking the position of yes. Do you feel you need to speak to that anymore?
No, I think it's.
Mr. Hassett, speak to your objection.
My objection on this and the previous one, all like this, is anytime that you're giving a break to any group, in this case, current homesteaders, you're effectively voting to raise taxes on everyone that's not in the class.
Agreed.
And that's the reason for my objection.
Vehemently disagree.
Anyone else seeking to be recognized on this particular issue? I saw your hand, but it was hesitant.
Me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go.
I disagree. I'm very. This is an exemption or a base level on the property tax levied on people's homesteads or residences.
Has to be homestead.
As opposed to real estate or
As opposed to commercial residential. I mean, not, it's just setting a bar beneath which, I mean, that's your class, right? People that have smaller homesteads getting favored.
It's a tax on renters, is what it really is. When you decrease taxes on homesteaders, and you pick it up on other property, you're really raising taxes on renters. Renters generally don't know that that's what's going on.
It's not
And
essential at that point.
non-homesteaders.
We're not the legislators.
Non-homesteaders.
Yeah, non-homestead question.
So you're, okay.
Mr. Westbrook?
So, I'm not sure I understand the position on how that's raising cost for the renters, because we're not affecting the house that a renter has to start with, we're just affecting that person's homestead and not the rent. So the rent should change. I mean, it's not gonna raise the rent. Anyway, as far as I'm saying, if somebody sees that differently, I'd like to explain it to them.
Mr. Hanson?
Thank you.
Mr. Hanson, let's call the question. It's been seconded. Is there any objection to calling the question?
Object.
All right, there's no objection to calling the question. Do not think that is debatable.
Nope, just vote.
All right, so we're going to vote on calling the question. Essentially, just so you understand, the net effect of calling the question is stopping debate. So we're going to vote now on calling the question on this matter, which would essentially end debate. So if you vote yes to call the question, you already make debate on this, and we go immediately to a vote. If you vote no on calling the question, and it fails, then we will continue debate. All right? All right, all in favor of calling the question and ending debate on this item? Two. All opposed? Four. Okay, so 4, so 22, 26. Okay. All right, the question has been called, and debate is ended on that item. We will proceed to a vote on this particular proposal, which is to take the position of yes on Prop 2. All in favor of taking the position of yes on Prop 2, raise your hand. Opposed? 4. Motion passes. So. Yeah, if there's any, thoughts that maybe you want to put in the nuance, just feel free to send them to me so I can try to work that in, because I know there's some people that, yeah. So. All right. Next item on the agenda, budget amendment. Ms. Traylor for 5 minutes.
Come on, y'all, we can get this done. All right, I move to transfer the remainder of the 21 relevant department budget in the amount of $10,966 as an addition to this year's development department budget and to authorize the expenditure.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to do what she said. And it was seconded, of course. Any objection to it? Probably not.
I'll
I get it. We have objection, I assume, just because you want to hear about it.
I just want to be very clear. So we're adding, basically adding that $11,000 to the current budget. Can you give us the total of that?
What's the total?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got that right.
You're asking the treasurer for a grand number.
So as of right now, for this year's budget, development department has a total of $36,000. Now, but before you guys are.
Madam Chair, point of personal
Can't hear
privilege, please.
Mr. Westbrook?
Could we please turn the sidebar?
Oh, yes. Can we please have quiet in the room so that we can hear the business going on? Thank you.
So before you get all like weirded out about that number, the reason why I want to move the remainder of last year's development department budget is because of the member benefits orders and the items that we had intended to complete by the end of last year. It did not happen due to the circumstances that Andrew and I had described earlier. So that amount was already earmarked for this project. It just needs to get moved in order for us to stay with in line with our budget. So it's only just doing a little bit of house cleaning. It's a project that was already approved for last year, and it just unfortunately made its little way into this year, and it just needs to be made whole. So that's the reason for this.
So you're saying the budget, the new budget would be 30,000?
It would increase to nearly 46,000, yeah, 47,000 nearly.
Any further discussion on this matter? Mr. Westbrook?
Was the amount to be spent for this year included in your budget for this year?
No,
Okay.
because.
That's all I think.
Okay.
Those fine.
Okay, no,
Anything else? The amendments? Well, actually, oh yeah, we have to. All in favor? Ready, one?
Is that unanimous?
All opposed? Zero. I was the cleanest one. Very good. All right, well, that concludes the business for today. We got things into announcements, and these will be announcements from SLEC members, and I know that Mr. Russell had one. I see Mr. Russell's first from way early this morning.
Yep.
Then Mr. Hale.
Yes, Kyle Russell, SD 16, Dallas County. I'd just like to, most of you probably already know, but I'd like to just announce to the body that I'm going to be seeking the office of Vice Chair at the State Convention.
Kevin Hale, Senate District 2. We got three things going on with my campaign, givecongressHale.com. The first thing is we have a guest speaker, Robin Porter, coming to Dallas on March 1st. We have Mark Tickett's going to be there. We have Shannon Steele's going to be there. And we just booked our Railroad Commissioner, Hyman.
Yeah!
Yes. Myself, I will be there. The tickets are only $10. If you have somebody that's libertarian curious, this event is totally down. So bring them to this event. It's only $10 for just regular entry. I have meal tickets for $50 and VIP for $100. VIP gets you access to the green room, which means you have access to this talent. The second thing I need is monthly donations so I can put my billboards. I need to raise $750 in monthly donations so that I can put my billboards up. The third thing is we're doing a delegate mailer. We're trying to raise $2,500 for that. I have hats and books over here for sale or for donations to do that. So thank you very much for your help. Give Congress help. Right.
So I'm the Texas rep to the National Platform Committee. Janae is the alternate. We've been attending the Zoom meetings on that. So if anyone has any changes they were proposed to the National LP Platform, please send me an email to tbrown@lptexas.org, and I will consider it. Oh, yes. In fact, there are places where you can enter the Zoom meeting just to observe the proceedings. The next one is on Sunday the 20th.
I just quickly wanted to thank a couple of people. I want to thank my chair. I'm from Tarrant County. I'm Elizabeth Miller from Tarrant County. And I just wanted to thank my chair for being here yet again. But oh, by the way, I mean, Donovan's pretty great, but by the way, his wife is pretty even better. I'm sorry. She's amazing. She's been taking over the ballot board duties. She's our point person for the Libertarian Party. So the Tarrant County has an election, what's the official election judge? What's it called? I'll screw it up. Anyway, there's a title. And that person for the Libertarian Party in Tarrant County. And just so you know, the Democrats have one, and then the Republicans in charge, because that's the majority in that county, right? Well, the Democrats, you have to have an alternate. What if that person, your main Democrat person, is sick that day? Well, who did she make the Democrat person if she's sick? Jocelyn, because that's who she trusts. So the alternate for the Democrats is a Libertarian. Because we're that. I just wanted to brag on my people. I'll take the opportunity, so thanks for indulging me. And I also wanted to thank Becca again for everything.
Mr. Nolan, go ahead if you want to take my call, and then Mr. Westbrook.
First off, Nolan Schmidt, Belton County, 10 District 21. First off, I want to thank everyone who has donated to my county judge campaign, helping me get to the $750 filing fee. From what I found out, I am the first local Libertarian candidate in Wallaby County. And after considering both my campaign team as well as the local special needs community organization in Wallaby County, I'm also the first and probably the only candidate locally in Wallaby County to actually add an opportunity for all platform to my campaign to help the special needs community in Wallaby County, since there are still businesses that will not hire those special needs who are willing to work and be independent. And especially since it's more especially very personal for me, since I myself am special needs, since I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome back in 1995. So it's really personal to me that I'm doing this race and everything else, and I still want to thank every single one of you that donated and have supported me so far.
So the first thing that I need to say is that I am no longer going to be seeking any offices as a candidate, and most of that's due to my personal health. It's a long story, so I'm not going to go into it. If you really want to hear it, you can come ask me. It's basically a lot of it has to do with my eyesight and other things, and ability to walk. But here's what I want to say. I am, in spite of my disability, will continue to seek to be part of this group, and here's why. I want to acknowledge just how great the officers, the volunteers, and the members of SLEC are at getting things done and being movers and shakers. I appreciate you. I appreciate the efficiency of the business that we do. I've been in organizations, nonprofits, and otherwise where that doesn't happen. You guys do a great job. Congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other select members with announcements? Jeanette?
I just want to remind everyone about Reno. Please get your tickets. If you have any questions about the convention, let me know. We are not here today, but tickets and Reno May.
All right, I will go. I just want to say this term started late in the middle of crazy times. And it continued, but got on schedule real fast, but still during crazy time. And I'm so proud of everything that we were able to accomplish this term, and the staff has been amazing. I think there are county chairs in here I haven't recognized, so thank you for reminding me of Donovan. And the other county chairs in here, there's some select members that fully know what we need. Already talked about earlier how we recruited so many more county chairs and affiliated so many more. We went into the 2020 convention with 88, I think, counties affiliated and lost half of them. I don't think that's going to happen this time. It's because of everybody in this room pulling together to make sure that we're recruiting effectively, we're vetting these people effectively, we're providing resources now that we were never able to provide before, and people out there are happy. And so that's because of you. And I want to thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing you at the convention in April.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, no, we have public comment. Public comment.
Also,
10
pick a
minutes.
date.
What's up?
Yeah.
Don't forget to state your name for the record.
I'm Jenny Moore, I'm the Development Associate, and I just want to thank this body because this is the body that voted to have my position in the first place. So thank you for that, and thank you for continuing to support me in this. It has been an honor to serve this group. If you know me, I've been sitting back here for a long time, years, years. I've watched a lot of groups come through here, and I am just floored at how efficient you guys have been. Total props to the officers. Thank you, Andrew. This is amazing, and I look forward to seeing all of you at convention.
As lifetime members?
Pardon?
As lifetime members?
Yes, that'd be great. But I also want to just encourage you. I know that it's been a lot of work and it's been rough and a lot of debate on a lot of issues. And maybe some of you in this room are considering giving up. Thank you, Jack, for saying that you're going to keep at it. But I just want to encourage you to stick with it and don't give up because this fight is definitely real. So, thank you guys.
Anyone else in the gallery?
It's not Harris County. I just want to remind everyone here that after this meeting in this room, the Credentials Committee will be hosting a convention leadership training that will be led by Jesse, but supported by all of us. Of course, it's been a long day, but we do hope that those of you who are interested in knowing how to effectively and correctly host a convention, or just want to know about the process and maybe help distribute that information, stick around for that. Thanks.
Starting time?
4:30.
Anyone else? If there's no one else in the gallery seeking to move to adjourn. Always in order and never debatable. Okay, anyone opposed? All right.
Yeah.